Hello friends, this video on human reproduction part 22 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Next question. Name the functions of the following: corpus luteum, endometrium, acrosome, sperm tail and fimbriae. So let us start with corpus luteum. So this is a structure which is formed after ovulation by the remains of the Graafian follicle. So we can say it is nothing but the ruptured Graafian follicle. What does it do? It secretes a hormone called progesterone, and this hormone is extremely important after ovulation because it helps to maintain the thickness of the endometrial lining. So that is the secretion of progesterone is the most important function of corpus luteum. Next is the endometrium, which is nothing but the innermost lining of the uterus, and this actually prepares itself, or this thickens itself in order to accommodate the implantation of the embryo, because the embryo gets implanted to the endometrium. And it also undergoes changes periodically, because if the embryo doesn't come to the uterus, the endometrium lining shades out, so in the form of bleeding, which is called menstruation. Otherwise it again builds up and prepares itself for the embryo implantation. Next is acrosome. Acrosome is nothing but the sperm head covering. So head of the sperm is covered by a region called by a crab-like structure called acrosome, and acrosome contain enzymes which are very good in hydrolyzing the membrane of the egg cell. Now since it is able to hydrolyze the membrane, that is why it becomes very easy for the sperm to enter or to penetrate inside the egg cell, and that is how it helps in the process of fertilization. Sperm tail. As I have mentioned that the sperm tail is quite long as compared to the other parts of the body, and its main function is to provide motility. That is, it helps the sperm to be mobile, to move from one place to another, because motility is something very, very important for the sperm. Fimbriae, these are the finger-like projections which are present on one end of the fallopian tube. So you have fimbriae being present here. So it is present towards that end of the fallopian tube, which is closer to the ovary. So what do these fimbriae do? Now they are like finger-like projections or hair-like structures. So they help to push the egg from the ovary into the fallopian tube. So they help in the process of ovulation. So collects egg from ovary during ovulation. That is a very important function which is performed by the fimbriae. Identify true or false statements. Correct each false statement to make it true. Androgens are produced by the Sertoli cells. This is not correct, because androgens are actually produced. So this is false, and androgens are produced by the Leydig cells, that is the interstitial cells. And what do the Sertoli cells do? They provide nutrition to the male germ cells. Spermatozoa get nutrition from Sertoli cells. Yes, this is true, as I said, because the job of Sertoli cells is to provide nutrition. Leydig cells are found in ovary. Obviously not. This is false, because the Leydig cells are a part of the male reproductive system. So it is found in the testis, in the interstitial spaces between the seminiferous tubules. Leydig cells synthesize androgens. Yes, this is true. Oogenesis takes place in corpus luteum. This is again false, because corpus luteum is just a structure which is formed inside the ovary. Oogenesis is the process of egg formation, which again takes place inside the ovary. Menstrual cycle ceases during pregnancy. Yes, this is true. That's because when a female gets pregnant, then the embryo gets implanted in the uterus. Now, when it gets implanted in the uterus, the endometrial thickening is required. So the endometrium does not break, and when the endometrium does not break, there is no bleeding, so there is no menstruation. Presence or absence of hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity or sexual experience. Yes, absolutely. That's because hymen is just a small, a partial covering of the vaginal opening. Now, it is not necessary that it gets broken only during a sexual experience. It is also possible that if somebody is performing some heavy exercise or running, jumping, or doing some sort of physical activity, then also it is possible that the hymen may break. So that means it is not a very reliable indicator to prove virginity. Question number 9. What is menstrual cycle? Which hormones regulate menstrual cycle? Now, as I mentioned, it is the reproductive cycle which takes place exclusively in females. It begins at puberty, and the first menstrual cycle is termed as the menarche. The menstrual cycle continues, it doesn't continue forever. The last menstrual cycle happens in between the age of 45 to 55 years, and this is called menopause. What happens in this menstrual cycle is over a period of time, periodically there is bleeding through the vagina, which occurs due to the breakage of endometrium, and this process of bleeding is called menstruation. It occurs every 28 or 29 days and lasts for 2 to 6 days, and it occurs 14 days after ovulation. So this is all about the menstrual cycle. Now, which hormones regulate menstrual cycle? There are quite a few hormones like LH, FSH, because these hormones actually decides, like for example, the level of LH hormone decides when ovulation will take place. Now, menstrual cycle in turn is dependent on ovulation. Again, FSH hormone decides when the follicular growth will take place. Now, that will in turn determine when the egg will be produced, so ovulation will take place. So similarly, estrogen and progesterone, the progesterone actually determines the thickening of the endometrium. So all these things are related. So these hormones regulate the menstrual cycle. So if the balance of any of these hormones is disturbed, then the menstrual cycle might get disturbed. Question number 10. In our society, women are often blamed for giving birth to daughters. Can you explain why this is not correct? That is very true. That's because we studied some time back that the sex of the baby is not determined by the mother, but it is determined by the father. So it is the father who is to be blamed. But however, anyways, nobody should be blamed. That's because it doesn't matter whether it is a son or a daughter. Everything, all of them are equal. But still, in some parts of our country, it is still prevalent that the sons are more valued than daughters. So people want a baby boy and not a baby girl. So anyways, keeping that aside, let us see how the sex is not determined by the mother. So females always have a perfect pair of sex chromosome like XX, and the males have a mismatched sex chromosome like XY. So now the female will contribute the X and the male can contribute either the X or the Y. So now the female egg will always have X, but male can give X or Y. So it depends. Now if X comes from the father, then X and X will combine to form XX, which is a girl. Similarly, if Y is contributed by the father, then X and Y will join together or fuse together to form XY, which would be a boy. So the sex of the baby is actually decided by the father and not the mother. Question number 11. How many eggs are released by a human ovary in a month? Okay, so one ovary can release only one egg. So one ovary can never release more than one egg. So that is for sure. So how many, in a month, how many eggs do you think would have been released if the mother gave birth to identical twins? Now twins again are of two categories. One is identical twins and the other is fraternal twins. So identical twins means they have exactly the same features, same characteristics and everything. So that happens when the mother gives just one egg. So one egg is released per ovary, but at a very initial stage, now at a very early stage, what happens is the single egg, the separation, the early blastomeres which are formed, they get separated, resulting from the first zygotic cleavage. So that means we have two separate blastomeres, and that is why it gives rise to two separate individuals. But they are formed from the single egg, and that is why they are so very identical. But when you talk about fraternal twins, they are produced when two eggs are released from two ovaries. Because in human beings, we have two ovaries, right? And one ovary can release one egg in a month. Now, in most of the cases, it is seen that only one egg is released in a month, either from the right ovary or the left ovary. But sometimes it happens that both the ovaries release one egg, and when both these eggs get fertilized by two different sperms simultaneously around the same time, that is the scenario where fraternal twins are produced. So they are like two different eggs fertilized by two different sperms. So that is why they are not identical. They have got different traits, different characteristics. So they are just like two siblings. It is just that they are taking birth at the same time. So that is the only difference. So this is how identical twins are different from fraternal twins. Just look at the last question. How many eggs do you think were released by the ovary of a female dog which gave birth to 6 puppies? Okay, now we spoke about the human reproductive system where we saw that the females have 2 ovaries and one ovary can release only one egg or one ovum in a month, so not more than that. But in case of dogs, it is not like that. In dogs, one ovary can release more than one egg in a month. Then that is why they are known as polyovulous. So in humans, only one egg is released from one ovary, but in dogs, multiple eggs can be released from one ovary. Now, if we say that the female dog gave birth to 6 puppies, that is definitely because 6 eggs were released from the ovary, from one ovary. Now, when 6 eggs were released, so all those eggs were fertilized by the sperms, and therefore 6 puppies were produced. So the number of puppies produced will always be equal to the number of eggs released from the ovary, because in case of dogs, their each ovary can release more than one egg. So with this, we have reached towards the end of this lesson, and I hope that this lesson on human reproduction would have helped you. Please go through please have a clear understanding on the various processes, whether it is fertilization or it is the menstrual cycle or how the implantation takes place, or be it the parturition part. So please have a clear understanding. If you have any doubts, please recap and revisit the videos over and again. So see you all in the next lesson. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.